everyone, I'm Adam Papagan. Welcome to There's a Place, the ASMR talk show. The show that feels good to hear. ASMR, the little tingly impulses your brain gets when you hear some soft talking, a quiet whisper, anything like that. I wanted to use this platform I have as a broadcaster on Dronebox to kind of address a community concern. I come from the days of public access television, community television on cable, and we use that as a platform to bring the community together, cover topics that the mainstream media might not be aware of, might not even touch. So I have a PSA here, right? Here in my pocket. Right before the show started, I was next door to the bodega. I was getting a popsicle to eat before the show. It was hot. Anyway, a gentleman approached me. He had like a big cut or something on his arm that had been recently bandaged. So he had a story to tell, but the story he wanted to tell me, he said, "Hey, this is a petition." He gave me this little certificate here, this little coupon. It said, "This is a petition not to close the taco place across the street, the 24-hour place." And so it reads, and I told him I would, I'd say, I'm going to go next door, I'm going to broadcast this out to the world. I'm going to get your message out there. Notice, 24 forced to close, underline, soon, by landlord because Panda Express wants to sell Chinese food here. Please send comments to Carnitas Michoacan No. 3 Facebook or Panda Express Facebook. So you heard it. If get on Facebook, reactivate your account if it's not active. Make some comments on their pages. Carnitas Michoacan No. 3 or Panda Express. Say, "Hey, we don't want you selling Chinese food here. We want to keep it Carnitas Michoacan No. 3. So, more information, check out Facebook. Well, let's get into our interview tonight. This is going to be a morbid show, I think, not in a bad way, but we might talk about some disturbing issues. So if you have any children watching or listening, it might be best to turn the station momentarily or for the next hour. But my guest tonight is a man about town, expert on serial killers. He works at the Museum of Death. Please welcome Stacey Beretta. Well, I wonder if we leave that in or we'll edit around it. Oh my gosh. Fell into a time loop. Well, like I said, disturbing show.
Yes.
Gonna be some disturbing.
Well, I'm a disturbing guy.
So, yeah, issues in there. So you are expert on serial killers.
I would say so, or as close as one could be without a degree.
Sure. What kind of degree would you get to be?
There's like criminal psychologists and stuff like the guys that you see on like every special about serial killers ever. But I read the same books. Watch the same YouTube videos.
So you would say your knowledge is up there, or at least equal
definitely
one of those people? Okay, so serial killers it's kind of like a subgenre. It's kind of I don't know, there's serial killer culture, there's stuff around it. So, in as nice a way as possible, just explain your hobby. Explain what you're into.
Well, besides, of course, like the band that I'm in, I collect. I'm a collector. And also, the way I acquire some of my items is by direct correspondence with some serial killers, terrorists, murderers, all sorts of bad people.
So anyone bad? If somebody only killed one person, are you not into it?
No. Actually, one of my longest running pen pals was Robert Bardo, who murdered Rebecca Schaefer. She was a upcoming actress in the late 80s, and cover of TV Guide, 17 magazine, you name it. And he was obsessed with her. He hired a private investigator, got her address, and he had a glossy photo that her fan club had sent him. So he was going around her street like, do you know where she lives? Because he couldn't find the actual place. They pointed it out, knocked on the door. She came down because she was very humble. She was 21, like, nice girl, girl next door. So she came down, she was happy to see a fan, it was a little weird, but hey, and she took his gifts that he had, and then, bye, that was it. And he walks away, and he wasn't happy. He had a CD, a U2 CD, actually, a copy of Joshua Tree that he wanted to give to her. He forgot. Goes back to her place, knocks it again, she comes down, gives her the CD, and then pulls a gun out and shoots her dead. And, gets life. And actually, you'll find this interesting, the prosecuting attorney that got him locked up and set all these new precedents for, like, special celebrity laws, Marcia Clark. Mm-hmm.
Oh, the big players.
But yeah, so it's to me, it's not, and it's not like, oh, man, like, it's so cool what you did or anything like that. Like, not at all. It's like it's a fascination with evil. It's like what, the closer you get to what scares you, the less scary it becomes. And so it's like you kill one person, you kill 100 people. To me, it's the story, like the mythos surrounding it,
Got it. Okay. So it's if there's a death that isn't infamous or gory, if somebody just dies in their sleep or something, you're not into that. There's no.
Well, that's interesting too. I'm fascinated by death in all aspects, but like as far as me going out and pursuing, I guess contact with that, it's like there's really no other besides talking to coroners or morticians, funeral directors. They're serial killers.
How did you get into this? Like, do you remember the first infamous death thing you were around, that you saw, that you heard about?
I can't put my finger on like one instance where I was like, dude, I like this stuff. It was something that my father was a cop, and my mom was a horror fan. She was, really into all that stuff. So there was just this huge bookcase full of books that literally the titles alone would scare me as a kid. Like, just like, I'd be watching a scary movie or something and be like, these books are going to get me. They'd be, bizarre. But, I started going through them, like Jack the Ripper, and there'd be crime scene photos, and I was like, holy crap. And then, it became, when I was like 13, 14, that's when like Rotten.com and like these kind of gore sites became prevalent on the internet, and looking at dead bodies for the first time with my friends, were like, Jesus. And I don't know, from there it just kind of expanded. But I remember in high school I used to catch a lot of flack, like when I was a freshman, like all my friends became cool football players and I was just like emo guy, and they're like, that guy likes serial killers, he thinks they're so cool. And I'm just like, yeah, whatever.
So serial killers, kind of defining characteristics, they lack empathy and stuff. How is it defined clinically, and do you have any extenuating, as an expert, people you'll include in it or who don't have them?
Well, there's, like, for instance, it's like, what's the difference between like a murder and an assassination? You know what I mean? It's like the intent, the plot, the conspiracy that goes into it, like the political influence, that kind of stuff. Like, serial killing is different than, say, a mass murder who goes into a school and kills 20 people. It's different, like, even if they just killed 3 people, because it's over time. It's not in one day. That's like the big thing. It has to be over time. It has to be plotted. And, some experts will say there has to be some kind of driving force, whether it's sex, whether it's, money, because there was a lot of serial killers that just killed straight up for cash. There's actually a woman in the 90s who was killing, like, neighbors that she would have Tupperware parties and stuff with. She'd be like, oh man, look, she doesn't have a husband, she's gonna be home alone, and she'd have her kid in the car. She'd knock on her door, she'd be like, hey, like, I was in the neighborhood, I'm lost, can you help me? They'd invite her in. She'd strangle them with like the phone cord and stab them, and then take their wallet and go shopping. She was just like a shopping addict that ended up, but she was a serial killer.
She hosted the Tupperware parties?
She would go to them.
She'd go to them?
Like, she never had them at her house to like pick out victims. She would just remember, like, she would remember the houses that she had been to them at. But, so, like, that's the difference really between, like, a serial killer, a murderer, and a mass murderer, is mass murder all at once. And then there's spree killers where it's, say, like, for a week straight, you're just going, like, that's like Starkweather and Fugate stuff in the 50s, where they were going around, like, boyfriend and girlfriend, just for a week they killed their family, they killed neighbors, and then they got caught. But a serial killer is, over time.
The Bonnie and Clyde situation.
Like Bonnie and Clyde, but without robbery as, like, the base. It was murder.
So it's of those subtypes of this macabre interest. Is there a name for this kind of culture? A shorthand?
I
Death
mean,
culture?
not really.
True crime, but it's not always crime.
Yeah, true crime is kind of what like the umbrella. I mean, that includes gangsters and bank robbers
right,
and
so not,
espionage and all that stuff too.
It's
But
exactly the same.
there's like for instance, like one of the nicknames for serial killer trading cards or artwork from serial killers or knickknacks and stuff like that is murderabilia.
Murderabilia. Oh,
Yeah.
okay, that's terrible. So, what's your favorite of the subset? Is it the spree killings?
I mean, I don't have favorite's the wrong word, but
You have favorites. Come on.
yeah, everyone does. I know.
Yeah,
it's so
you
sick.
know what a favorite
But
is.
you know what I mean. Again, it's like the ones I'm most fascinated by. And
Yeah, those
I
would
mean,
be your
serial
favorites.
killers for sure are definitely the most fascinating to me because there's like so much consumption of your entire self. Like you can't do anything except worry about that now. You know what I mean? And like someone like Jeffrey Dahmer or Ted Bundy or like these guys, like that's your life now, is killing people and trying to get away with it and just staying one step ahead and like burying this thing deep inside you, trying to be normal. It's crazy, you know what I mean? It's not like someone, like postal shootings or whatever, they just flew off the handle one day or got fired, or a school shooting where it's bullies. It's like this is a long developed urge that builds up and builds up and builds up and then finally breaks.
How do they usually go down, serial killers?
Like get caught?
Yeah.
They mess up. But sometimes it's by chance, I mean, nowadays it's fairly easy to catch someone because, different police departments are all connected. There's federal systems and you just feed in the crimes. It's like, oh, that sounds like it happened here, here, and here. I mean, in the 70s when it really exploded, because people were still hitchhiking back then, there was like, that's when you first hear of like all these guys around the country, Hillside Stranglers, Whitaker and Norris, Manson, who wasn't a serial killer, but he was around then, Bundy, all these guys. And that's when BTK was active. That's when Green River Killer started. It's because it was just a different time, and police didn't want to work together because they all wanted to be the one that caught the guy, so they wouldn't share information with each other, and these guys would move. They're not dumb. And yeah, sometimes they are dumb, and that's what gets them caught.
You bring up an interesting point, all this happening in the 70s. And then there's Jack the Ripper, but throughout history, are there historical examples of things?
No, yeah, I mean, serial killers go
Like-
back, I mean, to ancient times. I mean,
That's what I'm saying.
like
in
hundreds of
ancient
years ago, there
Egypt.
was probably, I mean, I don't go back that far because I like stuff where, like there's something from it still. There's like
Some
an artifact to be
artifacts. Yeah.
obtained, or there's interviews, or there's more out there than just one like set of text, But I mean, yeah, like hundreds of years ago, there was like Gilles de Rais in France who, murdered like dozens and dozens of children. Like that was huge. And also, a lot of experts believe that like the vampire and werewolf folklore came from serial killers back
that
then, because
makes
they're like, who could do this? We're seeing, a man's footprints leading to and from this awful crime scene where this person was, opened up and everything. It had to have been a man wolf, or it had to have been a vampire. So, I mean, it goes way back. People have been sick forever.
Those are some of the big ones. Ted Bundy and Jeffrey Dahmer are some of the big ones. Is there a lesser known serial killer you can tell us about?
Oh, well, I mean, the guys that
like
get...
a really good story.
I mean, there's a few. I mean, one of the ones that comes to my mind is Ed Kemper. He was from Santa Cruz. He was known as the co-ed killer. And his mom worked in like the administration at UC Santa Cruz. This was in the 60s, 70s. And he would, pick up hitchhikers, big hippie school and everything. And that's when hitchhiking was at its peak. The 70s ruined hitchhiking for the rest of time, because then people started making movies about it that were all big in the 80s, and no one wanted to hitchhike anymore. And but yeah, I mean,
that must have been so great.
he was great. Well, I mean, that's why you see a change.
People just get in your car.
Well, that's why in the 80s and 90s and up till now, you see a lot of prostitutes being killed. And that's the thing, is that, they killed, 37 prostitutes, because who else is just going to get in your car? You know what I mean? It's messed up. Like, that's their job, is just to get in a car with a stranger. But, no, Ed Kemper, he would pick up, co-eds. When he was a kid, he killed his grandparents because, in his words, I wanted to see what it felt like to shoot grandma. Crazy. And so he was in a mental institution, but he was a genius. He surpassed all the tests. Like, they would give him the administrative tests for employees, blew everyone out of the water, and he learned the system that way, and he got himself out. Moved in with his mom, which was a terrible idea. She was like what started all this in him. And yeah, he would, get the hitchhikers, pull over, rape him. He was like almost 7 feet tall. He's a huge dude. And, then shoot them. A lot of times he would cut their heads off and have sex with the heads, things like that. It's really brutal. And then he realized, dude, I hate my mom. Like, that's why I'm killing these women. So almost that day, he went to his mom's house, killed her, cut her head off, put her vocal cords down the garbage disposal, and then just spent time throwing darts at her severed head until the cops came to get him because he turned himself in. He became the top reader of books for the blind while he was in prison, and now he teaches coding to prisoners.
Huh.
Yeah.
Well, that's bad. That guy's teaching things?
He's a really smart dude. I mean, that's it. I don't know. Yeah, it's crazy.
He's gonna figure out how to get his murderous ways into the codes. They could be coding some cyber serial killer.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? Skynet's going global, dude.
Do you know, I don't know his name, but there's a Canadian serial killer that was one of the first to use DNA evidence in his case.
I mean, I know a couple Canadian serial killers, but I don't know that in particular. But there's Clifford Olson. There's who was fairly recent, but
it was a big case. It's my girlfriend's mother's uncle, and they have art that he made in prison.
That's crazy.
It's really good. How come a lot of serial killers are like good at art or make art?
I wouldn't say a lot are good at it, although there are really good ones. But most of them never painted or anything until they got into prison. And what else do you do? And then plus, if you get nationwide attention, you're gonna have people like me, writing to you like, just want it like, why? You know what I mean? And hey, you should draw me something. You ever think about drawing? Or here's some stamps. You should, send me a picture or whatever. And so they start in prison. That's like John Wayne Gacy, who was arguably like the most famous serial killer artist. He famously painted Pogo the Clown, which is the name of the clown that he would do children parties as.
Let's talk about that in a minute. But
No, for sure. He would paint like little bits here and there, but then, he started a huge business from prison, like where he would line up canvases like by the dozens and just go through. I'm gonna do the red on the nose. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do that, and he would like assembly line these paintings and sell them out of comic books.
Out of comic books?
Yeah, there was like true crime comic books, and he would have a big ad.
What's up with John Wayne Gacy? Is he like the serial killer? Is he the biggest one?
I think like if I had to pick one as like the one, it would be Ted Bundy.
Okay.
But Gacy is definitely like the most recognizable name besides someone like Dahmer or even Manson, who again isn't in the same class, but of that notoriety. And yeah, a lot of it has to do with the fact that he was putting so much of his art out there, and he never, ever, ever admitted guilt until the day he died. I'm innocent. He wrote like a huge like multi-volume book, like A Question of Doubt, and from prison, he just never let it up. It was bizarre.
He was all.
He confessed to the cops, but then recanted years and years later. Yeah.
But he definitely did it.
Oh, dude, they found 33 bodies underneath his house.
33?
Yeah, young boys, yeah.
Whoa.
Like teenagers, early 20s.
How did he get them?
Well, one of his a few different ways. He had a contracting company, so he would, offer him a job. Or, why don't you come back to my place? We'll talk about it. Pick up male prostitutes. He had a fake cop badge, so he'd pull up in his car with a little spotlight he had put in there and flash his badge. He'd be like, "Get in, you're in trouble." And he'd be like, "I'm just effing with my name's John." And he's like, "Why don't you come back to my place? You want to smoke some reefer? I got some beers or whatever." And then they get him back there, and it's pretty much over. He used chloroform a lot of times. He would do magic tricks with handcuffs. He'd put handcuffs on himself and get out. Be like, "I can show you how to do this." And he'd be like, "Okay, cool." You put the handcuffs on him and be like, "The trick is you need the key," and then chloroform him and have his way with him. Put the bodies under the floorboards.
He chloroformed them to death?
No, just to knock him out. Then he'd have his way with them, and
because they usually have sex with the bodies and stuff.
Yeah, I don't think he ever.
In a different order. They switch up the order.
Yeah.
They do the murder all the same, then they switch up the order of the killing and the sex and the.
Yeah, it all depends.
Torture.
And some guys go back. If they dump them somewhere, like Green River Killer would do this, Ted Bundy would do this. They'd go back and do it again. With the same rotting body, and then once it got too. They wouldn't anymore.
What is the most despicable act you've heard about any of these serial killers doing? that even you, an expert of murderabilia, was like, man.
There's this guy, this is a lesser known guy, Wesley Allen Dodd. He was a young dude, early 20s, and he was a child killer in Oregon. And one day he went out to a park. It was Memorial Day weekend. He got 2 little boys alone. I believe they were like 8 and 11 years old. They were brothers. Got them alone and in the park. Started, diddling them and whatnot. One of them got scared, so he's like, well, this is the time, because he had been busted for child molestation and stuff, like, going on and on and on for years, but he always got let out. Like, the system failed us. Like, he would just keep getting out, like, 10-year sentence, 2 months, like, things like that. And he thought, like, dude, I'm gonna get away with it, but I'm gonna start killing them. And so he killed these 2 brothers. They were found, and he waited a while, and then this is, like, the harsh one, so, take your kids out. But he kidnapped this one little boy, Lee Isley, brought him back to his place, molested him, took dozens of pictures, all that, and then strangled him to death. And then gave him CPR, brought him back to life, did it all over again. And then hung him in his closet, went to work, came back, disposed of the body. And they found his Ghostbuster underwear in a suitcase underneath his bed when they busted him, along with all the pictures that were in like a frilly family photo album.
A lot of child porn comes from stuff like that, like torture.
Yeah, I mean, no matter what you're shooting, I mean, if it's pornographic and it's a child, it's probably torture.
Yeah, like serial killers kidnap.
Yeah, crime scene photos, they get leaked.
So the stuff with the children is bad. What about that couple from England?
Oh, there was 2.
There's 2 couples from England?
Yeah, there's Fred and Rosemary West. And
this is one where she killed her sister. He made her kill her sister.
Well, then there's also, I believe her name was Myra Hindley. Her boyfriend's name escapes me, but they were like really into Nazi stuff, and I think that one might have been it. And they would record the screams and that kind of stuff. And they got locked up separate from each other, never spoke again, always were going back and forth at each other. And actually this one, and again, this lady's name escapes me, but she was like the Paris Hilton of England in like the 60s, and like just like party girl socialite. She got locked up on a drug charge and was in the cell next to her, and she wrote like all these books about it, like she knew everything. And it's kind of a funny story. Like it'd be like if Paris Hilton was next to like Eileen Wuornos.
How come there aren't that many female serial killers?
I don't know. There's really no. I mean, and there are a lot, but most of them they don't make the headlines like the men do. I mean, go figure. But I don't know. It's just something. It's a lot of it. I mean, and this is how it used to be. Now I'm sure it's different, and in different areas of the world it's different. Different parts of the country it's different. But a lot of it is like a privilege thing. It's like you can do this. You have the means to carry out this most like heinous desire. You know what I mean? It's like you have a car, you have a job, you can move anywhere you want, you can do all this stuff. You know what I mean? And also, men just not that women don't, but men have this like insane primal sexual like urges going on like at all times. And if you direct that in the wrong way from an early age, it's like, and you don't want to tell anyone about this, you don't want to talk about it, but because you're not talking to anyone about it and they're not telling you that you're weird, it just becomes like this normal thing that keeps building and building and building until like you have to. You know what I mean? I don't know, it's weird. Well, females usually do custodial serial killing, which is like I'm killing someone that I work with. Like they might be a nurse, they might be giving all their patients cyanide, they might be a babysitter, suffocating the kids, things like that. Or it's usually like financial reasons. There's very few like sexual female serial killers. So
you've turned this hobby, murderabilia, into a career at the Museum of Death. We're here right now, actually. It's we're right here.
Damn.
You've brought some souvenirs, some murderabilia here in that bag. Let's see what
I
you
got a
here.
couple of things. So let's see. This is really cool.
Some salad dressing?
It is hot sauce that is sold at the Last Resort Bar in Daytona Beach, Florida, which is where Eileen Wuornos was arrested. And they sell it. It's called Crazy Killer Hot Sauce with a nice little picture on there.
Who is Eileen Wuornos?
She was America's first, like, Eileen Wuornos. Yeah, she was, like, America's first, like, huge mainstream publicity female serial killer. She was a lesbian, also a hooker.
Charlize Theron.
Yeah, the movie, Monster was based on her, and actually she won an Oscar for that. But they, even as gnarly as they made her look, she still looked like so much better than Eileen Wuornos. But and Christina Ricci as the girlfriend is like, that's crazy. That'd be like if I was playing Michael Jordan. But
what was her story?
yeah, so she was a hooker, had like super hard life, had a kid from her grandpa, or suspected, and, would show boys, here, squeeze my boob for, $1 or whatever in the backwoods, live in a tent and whatnot. And yeah, she was just a hooker bouncing around place to place. And she met this woman and they kind of fell in love. And she was like, well, listen, this is like the only good thing I've ever had in my life. You know what I mean? Like this, I'm going to do whatever I can to keep it. So she started, she was going to stop being a prostitute because she found this, but then she's like, dude, I need to be able to pay for these motel rooms we're staying in. I don't want her to think I'm a loser. So she started doing it again, and this is what I believe, this is disputed, and what she said was the first time that she killed the guy, her first victim, she got in the car and they drive off to a place, she's, making the deal, and he's like, well, I'm going to take what I want. And he brutally rapes her. He gets, he knocks her out, but she wakes up in handcuffs. He's, brutally raping her. And according to her court testimony, he then took a Visine bottle full of rubbing alcohol and squirted it inside of her, where it's now all cut up and torn up. So she's screaming, and she had a gun in her purse. She gets herself loose, gets the gun, and blasts him. Takes his money, she's so freaked out. And then she says that the next consecutive 5 guys that she killed all did the same thing, or they were telling me they're a pedophile or this, that, or the other. But what I think happened is she was raped that time, self-defense, she took the money, and then she realized I don't need to put up with this, I can just kill the guy, and then instead of getting $20 for having to do something, I can take whatever they got. And that's what happened. She was executed.
They caught her at this bar.
Yeah, they caught her at that bar, last resort.
She looks nuts in this photograph.
She was pretty nuts. Her last words had something to do with Independence Day. She said, I'm flying with the Rock, just like on Independence Day. I'll be back in the mothership with Jesus. Something along those lines. But Independence Day was so bizarre. It's she was in prison watching Independence Day. Oh, but let's see, what else do I got here? These are the complete set of true crime trading cards, if you want to take a look at those.
Let me flip through these here.
Yeah, and about halfway in is where you get to the second series where the serial killers start. Yeah, right where you were. Yeah, right there. Yeah. Next page after that is where the killers start, the serial killers. But yeah, Eclipse Enterprises came out with those. They were a kind of subversive publishing company, did a lot of crazy trading cards. They did AIDS awareness trading cards. They did true crime trading cards, JFK assassination trading cards, all this stuff. And this was a huge thing. It was all over the news. People were outraged. Huge First Amendment issue. Parents were afraid that kids were going to take down, their Wayne Gretzky posters and put up, Jeffrey Dahmer posters, and we're making heroes out of these guys. But that card set also has, FBI agents, famous criminal psychologists. It's true crime. It's not just, murders. But yeah, those are when you hear anyone say anything about serial killer trading cards, which comes up here and there.
Oh, I
those
hear
are
about
the
it
original.
all the time.
Yeah.
Serial killer trading cards.
Yeah, those are the originals.
So I'm seeing one here. Do you know anything about Wayne Williams?
Yeah,
he's the only black serial killer.
Well, there's a lot more now. Actually, Los Angeles has one with one of the highest body counts of all time, Lonnie Franklin, the Grim Sleeper.
Yeah.
And that has a lot to do with who he was killing. He was killing, prostitutes and, crackheads in South Central. The cops didn't care, and they let it go on for decades. And then now that, with the rise of DNA evidence and all this stuff, they're pinning him to so much stuff, it's out of control. But, and I think they just gave him the death penalty, but in California, that doesn't really mean anything. But Wayne Williams was known as the Atlanta child murderer.
Great.
And, in the 70s, he was in Atlanta, Georgia, and he was killing young boys, 6 to 10 years old, maybe early teens, and, having sex with them, and then ditching the bodies. And it was so many kids. The numbers were piling up. And at first, the police thought, well, maybe it's a hate crime, And then they brought in, this is when FBI profiling first, became a big thing. They brought in the profilers, and they're like, well, no, he's killing all these black children. They're all being sexual assaulted. He's black because, 9 out of 10 times these killers, they're going for someone like them, you know. And also, he was a cool guy, you know. He was young, he was a radio promoter, he was trying to, you know, start his own record label and stuff like that. So, you know, he talked the talk, and like these kids thought he was cool. And I mean, it was a big, like, everyone was outraged that the police weren't being able to find him. They made pins like "Stop the Atlanta Child Murders" and all this stuff. And then yeah, they finally caught him because they were staked out everywhere where they thought that he would dump a body. They heard a big splash. They saw what car pulled off after it. It was him. And the big splash was, of course, the dead body.
All right, one more on this. Mary Healy.
That one I couldn't tell you, but there's a full description on the back.
Okay. John List?
Oh, but there's Henley, like we were talking about on that last one. Two like Nazi British sex killers.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, everyone gets a card. Oh, and that guy at the end right there, under him. Yeah, what's his name?
Cheryl.
Yeah, he was the. I believe that was the post office shooter.
Oh yeah.
Going postal came from. That's when that started. But then that happened a bunch at postal offices. It's insane.
Yeah, but what was up with that? Was it always postal workers?
You know, there's a great documentary about it called Murder by Proxy, and it's all about like workplace shootings. And I mean, that happened so much throughout the 80s, and that's why like going postal became like part of our lexicon. And it has a lot to do with like the monotony of the job. It never ever stops. You know, the mail never stops. So it's just like boom, boom, boom. You're like from the moment you sit in your chair until you get up, you're doing the same thing over and over and over again. Super fast paced, don't fall behind, and you're so underappreciated. You know what I mean? You're just another gear in the machine, and that's all. And like if someone gets fired or whatever, like, you know, for whatever reason, like if they had a really good excuse, they're very sick, they can't come in, and you know something comes up and you get fired. It's like, God. Oh, like you don't even know what I do.
Give my life to the post office.
Yeah, it's like you don't even know how much I do for this place. You know how hard it is to do this job. So you know, underappreciation is a powerful thing. You know, that's why like kids, you know, most kids that shoot up their schools are, you know, super underappreciated, bullied, picked on. They just don't feel like they have a place.
Do you feel any empathy for these people?
Not really. Sometimes, you know, like I said, like with the school shooters or something where it's someone that's like, you know, so, and, you know, this doesn't go for all of them, but it's like, I just feel like that could have so been prevented. You know what I mean? Like that just could have so been stopped. But then like any of these guys where it's like, you know, sexually based or any of those huge name dudes, it's like, no, not at all. It's like, you guys are trash. You're evil people. Like, how do you know, it's like you don't see any of these guys going to mental institutions because like the definition of the insanity defense is, can you tell right from wrong? They all could. That's why they're in regular prison. That's why they get executed. Because like, you knew what you're doing, man.
You have to agree that there's something off about them.
Oh, definitely. But I feel like that's like, you know, with a lot of these guys.
Them that way.
And I mean, and that's one of those things that's been disputed for so long, you know. It's like that's why they want to study the brains of all these guys. Like Jeffrey Dahmer, for instance, when he was killed in prison, there was a huge legal battle between his father and his mother. And the mother was like, we should let them study his brain, you know. And the dad was like, no, we need to cremate all of them, and blah, blah, blah. And they went to court over it, and they battled over Dahmer's brain. But, because, yeah, I mean, you know, there could be a chemical imbalance. Like, head trauma is a big thing, you know, like that wrestler Chris Benoit who killed his wife and kids and then hung himself. They found out later, like, his brain was mashed, you know what I mean? Like, that had a major part to do with it. He couldn't produce, you know, dopamine or, like, these happy feelings anymore. It was just, like, constant, like, sorrow and depression and hatred and anger that, like, he couldn't shake because that's just what his brain made now, you know. So there's all sorts of things that play into it. But like, again, it's like you live in this society, you go out every day, you see newspapers, you talk to people, you know not to kill and eat people or, you know, rape anyone, or, you know what I mean? It's like these are just things that you just don't do. So it's like
there are plenty of people who have had, you know, trauma in their past who don't do this.
Yeah, of course. And some of them don't even have like trauma, you know what I mean? Some of them are just like Wesley Allen Dodd, that child killer I was talking about. I mean, we had money, we had an RV, we went on vacations, I had 2 sisters, everything was fine. Like, I just liked that. So it's kind of weird, you know. And like, yeah, and some of the trauma, it's like, it doesn't make sense how it translates to that. Like, some people blame Ted Bundy's thing on his childhood trauma, which was, parents split, dad was kind of demanding, found out later that his older sister was actually his mother, and his grandma was acting as his mother and stuff, and they're like, oh, well, that, like, sent him over the deep end. Mm-hmm. Or, like, oh, his breakup with his girlfriend, like, that's why he killed all girls that looked like the girl he wanted to marry. And then, he says that in his only interview that he ever granted post-incarceration, which was actually on the day he was executed, and it was with this weird reverend that was on this anti-porn tirade. And so Ted Bundy had him coming because, it'll make him look like it wasn't his fault. And he blamed it all on porn. He blamed it on finding, violent pornography, like BDSM stuff as a young kid. And that just progressing and not realizing that when you see that stuff, it's consensual, because it's not like now where you type anything on the internet and you get it and you realize, like, oh, there's warnings and stuff. Mm-hmm. It wasn't like that. You just pick it up and you see a chick tied up. It looks like she's in pain with, like, a dude, doing whatever. Like, how did that happen? How did she get like that? He tied her up. You know what I mean? So it's weird. I mean, there's no telling how this stuff happens.
What else you got in that sack?
So I have a couple different, like, binders of letters from different people. I have it broken down kind of like by what they did, or who they were. This is teenage killers, people who were teenagers when they were caught or when they were committing the crimes. And the most, actually, I have some I haven't even put in the sleeves yet, but the most, I don't know, infamous person that I ever got a reply from was Lee Boyd Malvo, who was one of the DC snipers, if you remember those guys. Yeah, John Muhammad, the older one, he was executed. Malvo's in there for life, but he, pulled the trigger on multiple ones of their victims. And he wrote back, and he's got really interesting handwriting. It's very neat, and everything's kind of broken into stanzas. But I can actually, let's see. If they weren't so long, I would read one of his poems, but they're crazy long.
What do you say when you write to somebody? It's like a cold call out to a serial killer.
Essentially, right? Here, you want to take a peek. It's always very general. I spend a lot of time researching them, watching all the interviews I can, reading what I can, kind of finding out what they liked as, like, a regular person, not like what they did, so I can kind of bond with them on that. With the teenagers, it's kind of easy, because when you're locked up in prison, like, that age that you're locked up at, that's your age, you know what I mean, for the rest of your time there. You're basically in a time capsule. So like a lot of, like, that binder, for instance, besides Lee Boyd Malvo, there's this guy Rod Farrell, and that Rod Farrell had, like, a heavy metal vampire cult in the early 90s, and they went around the South. He killed one of his friend's parents, and they were just supposed to steal some money because they were going to New Orleans to do some blood sacrifice. And went into the house to steal the money. Dad was sleeping on the couch. He's like, I'm gonna kill him. Bashes his head in with a crowbar, does the same to the mom, and then they took off. And I told him, I'm in a band, I'm in a band called Sons of the Bitch. It's heavy, and this, that, and, like, what kind of music were you guys listening to? And and I kind of, like, drew, like, cool, like, metal, like, his name, like, in cool metal font and stuff. And yeah, he wrote back, like, a bunch of times, because, like, that appealed to him.
And then you eventually fall out of contact with them?
Yeah, they're all the same. They all want something from you. Like, they all want money. There's a thing called JPay. It's like PayPal for prisoners. And if you have their inmate number, you can send money to anyone in the country. And they all, eventually, like, second letter or so, they'll always be like, hey, JPay, or what have you. Lee Boyd Malvo, he fell out because, he told me right off the bat, like, I don't write to many people, like, I hope this doesn't end up on the internet, blah, 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 all this stuff. And then he sends me, like, an invoice for, like, a TV he wants. It's like $213. I'm like, no. I was like, I'll give you like $20, dude. And
you're gonna give him money?
Well, then he sends me artwork, and then I display it in the museum. It's forever, like, this horrible moment that will just get washed over by the next horrible moment is, preserved forever. And also, artwork is a very exclusive insight into someone's brain. You know what I mean? It's like, what do you see in your head?
But then you're helping him get a TV.
Get corn nuts or whatever. Like, money in prison doesn't really go that far. So it's like, it's a give or take. It's like, if you want that stuff, nothing's free, but normally you just send them, like, stamps or whatever, or depending on what they all have different rules. You can send them like blank papers, so, or like envelopes, stuff like that. So that's like usually currency. I like never send money. I think I've sent one dude money. He was a rapper, Big Lurch. He was a cannibal. He ate on PCP. He ate his girlfriend, and I sent him like $10 because he would not stop, and he was getting so mad. And he was cool. Like he would write me like lyric sheets and sign them and stuff. I was like, this is badass. And but yeah, he stopped talking to me. He found out I was white. Actually, that's why he stopped talking to me.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So
It
these
wasn't about
guys
that.
are off, obviously.
Yeah.
You'd have to be to do this. Stacey, what advice would you give to somebody who was interested in this hobby of murderabilia and wanted to get closer to death, closer to that unknown, closer
Like if
to
you,
that scary thing
Right.
to make it less scary?
if you think that these guys are cool, like if you think that's cool, don't do it. You know what I mean? Don't do it because you're going to treat them like a celebrity. You're going to fall into whatever trap. I mean, this one kid, he was like brought to suicide by, contacting Gacy. It's called The Final Victim. There's a book about it. And it's like, it's like if that's how you look at it, it's just not for you. You know what I mean? Buy it off one of these auction sites that they have for this kind of stuff. Don't contact them because that's their game. You know what I mean? Is manipulating. What can I get from you? They're stuck there. You know what I mean? So whatever they can do to someone on the outside, to them, that's like a release. That's like freedom in a way. So yeah, it's like if you really think that these guys are cool, or you look up to them, or like, you have like sick fan, it's like, don't even write, you're going to put yourself on some list. I'm probably on like 1 billion of them. Like I have, in this Teenage Killers, I tried to write to the Boston Bomber, and, he's at the AdMax, which is like the top prison in the country. That's where they put like the Unabomber and 9/11 guys that they caught. And here's the $211 for a 13-inch flat screen TV. But this is my rejection letter because you have to correspond. Like you have to like get permission to write to these guys, and it's from the federal penitentiary, like the toughest prison in the country. And so your correspondence to the above named inmate is being returned. It was not delivered to the inmate because you have not approved your correspondence with this individual. And I feel like that, like now, like I'm totally like some watch list or something, even though like they send your letter back. And I kind of made it seem like I was a girl. Like I used like pink like ink and purple and stuff, and I used the name Stacey Ryans, and like, yeah, my name is Stacey, how are you? In these dark times I thought you could use a pen pal, that is. Like, just goofy basic stuff. Yeah.
Whoa. So you're like a 419 eater.
What?
The 419 scam where they scam the Kenyan scammers.
Yeah, I guess so.
That could be the greatest punishment to them at all. You getting their hopes up and not being able to kill them.
No, that's why I don't care. You know what I mean? It's like, that's why it's like, dude, no, I'm not gonna buy you a TV. Like, you're an evil dude. Like, I just wanna know.
But still have it, still academically preserving it.
Definitely.
Some sort of.
No, and that's at the end of the day, that's what it's really all about. It's like I don't get these. I'm just like, fuck, you know what I mean? It's interesting.
When you get the letters back in the mail, is that like did you get like an adrenaline
huge.
rush?
Yeah, totally.
So kind of like how they feel when they kill a victim.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, if that's how you have to get it out. Stacey, so much for coming on the show.
Of course, man. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you. Check out Sons of the Bitch, his rock group. We didn't even get into that. It could be a whole other interview.
It's fine.
Museum of Death. Thank you very much for tuning in, all of you. Till next time, this is Adam Papagan reminding you that there's a place you can go, and it's your mind. Good night.